YouTube, my name is Jake Asman. Welcome in. It's time to talk some Jets. And joining me this week for an extensive New York Jets deep dive is someone that you all know. He was the most requested Jets personality that I was told to have on the channel. He is New York Jets GreenBean, and he joins me right now. What's going on, GreenBean?
Dude, I'm in a fantastic mood. I appreciate it. It's nice to hear such warm things about our Jets brethren, and I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited.
My pleasure. Certainly a lot to talk about. We'll get to our thoughts on Flight 2021. We'll talk about some of the news and notes out there. David Castro is available. Should the Jets go after him? Douglas, is he going to sign a veteran corner, the backup quarterback situation, all that. Before we get to any of it, though, I just want to say, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe below so we can continue to produce New York Jets content. And if you are on social media, please feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Asman. And of course, GreenBean, you know all about what he's doing. Check out the GreenBean's Jets Pod and Jets Nations on the road with GreenBean, and definitely subscribe, listen, all that. GreenBean knows his stuff, which is why we wanted to bring him on. So without further ado, GreenBean, Flight 2021, you had a great recap video breaking all of it down. But if I ask you for your big takeaway watching all 4 episodes of the documentary style content that the Jets posted about their offseason, what to you was the biggest takeaway?
Well, my blanket takeaway is that for the first time in the longest time, we actually have an organization that just might know what they're doing. They might be detail oriented. They might know how to break down scenarios, and they might actually be communicating with one another, which many of us know in the Mike Maccagnan era, he didn't like his scouts to talk to coaches. He thought that tainted the analytics and all that sort of stuff, which is just ridiculous to me. So finally, we have an organization that seems like they all know what they're doing and they're all talking. So there were numerous examples of what that looked like and why I feel that way. But that's what I came away thinking, like, oh my God, man, this is real. It's not just my hope anymore. We have, solid examples of why it is that we feel like we just might be turning a corner. And there's a lot of reason for hope, man. Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Chad Alexander, when Phil Savage spoke, I got the impression like, oh my God, like this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Now, he wasn't that great as a GM, maybe, but he still knows the system and he knows how it's going. And just hearing him talk, John Carr, Rex Hogan, all these guys, every time somebody spoke, it sounded better than the last guy. And I just couldn't be more excited. I watched it 3 times and I know I'm not done. I have more to kind of try to pull out of it, but I really came away excited and our regime looks good to me, man.
You just get the sense that the organization is finally connected how it should be, right? I mean, for years you had head coach and GM reporting to ownership. It never made any sense. You had Maccagnan with Gase, and then obviously before that, Maccagnan with Bowles, and it just the timelines never matched up for how the organizational structure should be. Now you feel like GreenBean, all right, you have Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas on the same page. Saleh reports to Douglas. Douglas handles ownership. And obviously, you bring in Zack Wilson to this type of environment. It seems like it is now finally a functional organization that is set up for long-term success if they obviously nail the right players and if Robert Saleh ends up being the right guy to lead this team going forward.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot to do, right? Like just like you said, there's a lot of, is this guy going to work out? Is Elijah Moore what we think? Is Zack Wilson going to be able to handle the NFL? We know his competition thing was a big bugaboo for a lot of people during the evaluation process pre-draft. But it's like when you look at all of the things that needed to happen in order for players to actually matter, that's the foundational stuff that we're seeing. Just like you mentioned, like with Mike Maccagnan and Todd Bowles. Mike Maccagnan didn't hire Todd Bowles. John Idzik didn't hire Rex Ryan. It was this cluster of just messy, sloppy baloney. Let me say, I almost said something else, but I'll keep it to baloney. Yeah, and it's like finally we have this, like just as of the firing of Adam Gase, we finally have it where Joe Douglas is above the head coach. And the Johnsons get a bad rap, and I understand why. I mean, they had this thing where the owner, the coach and the GM both report to the owner and all that, and it was kind of sloppy. But the truth is because the organization was filled with people who didn't know what they were doing. So they were all it was the blind leading the blind. And that's no longer the case. And you can sense that. You see it and everybody is lockstep with doing their job to the best of their ability, and they actually know what they're doing, man. And now when we pick players, just like you said, when they come in, they don't sense like, oh my God, where am I? I can't wait to get out of here.
It feels as if everyone's on the same page, and there's certainly, a real plan in place. Now that we've wrapped up mini camp and, of course, OTAs, the next big storyline will be training camp coming up this summer. But if we go back to OTAs, GreenBean, we go back to mini camp, and you start to read through the tea leaves on what the team is saying about certain players, right? What they're saying about Zack Wilson, how he looks, what they're saying about Elijah Moore. It sounds like the early returns or that the Jets feel like they got a massive haul with this this incoming rookie class. Am I reading that? That right so far?
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? It's really funny. I mean, I happen to like last year's draft, Joe Douglas's first draft. I didn't love it, but I really liked it, and it looked like we were kind of onto something, like just the first 2 picks alone, and then getting Bryce Hall later and all that sort of stuff. But this draft actually seems like even with the trade up and losing those thirds, we still managed to get essentially what I had rated as 3 guys who were going in the first round with our first 3 picks in Zach, Elijah Vera-Tucker, and Elijah Moore. Now, the returns coming out of there, it seems like even our beat, which is overtly negative most of the time, seems kind of leaning towards excitement. And that's weird to see. I'm almost like waiting for how they're going to play this and kind of, stick it in our back, so to speak. But I think what we're really witnessing is these players are really widely respected across the league. Everybody had them rated high. All the analysts had them rated high. And the fact that we got guys, even down to Michael Carter in the 4th, after that, you can go either way on whether you think Jamien Sherwood can actually translate to a will linebacker and all those. That's a discussion to be had. But the first 4 picks, I think widely, most people are like, yeah, man, they got some serious players with their first 4 picks up to the 4th round, which isn't always the case. We're usually falling off a cliff after the first. With why did they pick that guy? Ja'Kai Polite, what are they doing? Nathan Shepard. So those kinds of things. So I think it's really good to hear the excitement. They still need to play a game, but I think this is kind of what I expected after the draft because I liked all these players coming in. These were the types of guys I was finally hoping that we would bring into the organization.
2 things we learned in Flight 2021 as it relates to the draft class. One is that the Jets had Elijah Moore as a top 16 player on their board, and that's why they were astonished that he was there with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round. And, it also kind of makes sense why Robert Saleh is out of breath on all these calls because he's so excited that these players that they rated so high somehow fell to them. Another example of that, GreenBean, is Michael Carter. The Jets likely take him in the 3rd round if they had a higher 3rd round pick, but they made the trade up for Elijah Vera-Tucker. So they were sitting there on pins and needles waiting for Carter to fall. And Carter even tweeted about this, that watching all the teams pass on him in Flight 2021 is now added motivation, which is what you love to hear if you're
Absolutely.
a Jets fan. I mean, the top 4 picks the Jets made, going with offense just dictates, an understanding from this general manager that he's not failing Zack Wilson the way the team did not surround Sam Darnold with enough talent. I don't know where you were with the Darnold Wilson debate. My standpoint was, both sides probably need a fresh start, but it's a damn shame we never got to find out what Sam was because they didn't do enough for us to get a clear answer. Now with Wilson, he's coming into a situation from a coaching standpoint is way better, obviously, but just from a roster standpoint, the Jets, dare I say, actually have adequate weapons for Zack Wilson to throw the football to now.
Yeah. Well, I aligned right with what you said, and I tried to remain objective and all that. It's funny, Jets fans, they become very polarized. They're either like you love Sam or you hate him, and you can't reside somewhere in the middle. But I honestly did. I like Sam Darnold. I loved the pick. I didn't think we were getting him, but that's a whole other story. But I did like him as a quarterback. And I thought it was unfortunate that he was, experienced the situation that he did. And I did think it was probably best to move on. I did like the idea of trading that number 2 pick back for a life-altering haul and all that sort of stuff. But I thought the best case scenario was probably Sam needs to go. He needs a fresh start. We need a fresh start. Not only did we not give him weapons, man, but he's never even had a quarterback coach, not for 1 year. Jeremy Bates didn't have a quarterback coach. Adam Gase didn't have a quarterback coach or offensive coordinator. Don't tell me Dowell Loggins was an offensive coordinator. I do not buy it. So the fact that Sam Darnold failed here is no surprise to anyone who's looking at it. And then add the weapons and starting Chris Hogan and all that sort of stuff in the offensive line. So I did think that it was good that they went the way that they did. I thought the return for Sam was good, all that sort of stuff. And just like you said, the fact that Joe Douglas the past 2 years has used a first round pick on offensive linemen, has used a second round pick on wide receivers, and then his fourth round pick on a running back. 2 years in a row, fourth round pick on a running back. So it just shows you there's a focus on the offensive side of the ball. They're using their premium picks on the offensive side of the ball because guess what? It's an offensive league. Every other team knows this. Every other team knows the NFL is geared now to promote scoring. So why are we still focusing so many resources on defense? They're at a disadvantage. You can get the same stuff in the fifth or sixth round from Hamza Nasruddin as you can in the third round or second round from whoever, Jabril Cox or whatever it might be. So I like the way that they did it, and I like that Saleh and Ulbrich believe that the guys they got on the back end for their defense, they're just as excited as if they were first-round picks. So
and that's
I think
a big thing.
Yeah. Go on.
It just having the scheme, right? Having a defensive coach coming in that could make the most of what he has. I think that's why they haven't signed that veteran corner. They look at it like, we know our front seven's improved. We're getting CJ Mosley back up the middle. We understand that the previous regime did not maximize the players that were already on the team, and now the guys that they added. So, I think it's a great point, GreenBean. I think Saleh's coming in, and he's like, we need to do everything possible to fix our offensive side of the ball because we'll figure it out defensively. In today's NFL,
Right.
You got to score points, and I think the Jets look at it like our defense is going to be better than anyone realizes because we're really confident, as you watched in Flight 2021, about just how damn good our front seven might end up being.
Did you hear what Ulbrich said? He was talking about Carl Lawson, and he said he feels like his stats are going to be more representative of his talent. He said because the way he pass rushes, quarterbacks traditionally step up into the pocket. He said with our interior defensive line, there's not going to be a pocket. I swear, if I had a throwaway computer, I would have smashed it. That's the kind of things. It reminded me of like Rex with that target on your chest comment. I get psyched when our guys believe in our players and everybody's really kind of aggressively confident. So that's the thing. Our front seven and our 4-man rush is going to be stout. That's going to improve the back end. And I think that's finally the focus. And I've been screaming that for years. Focus on the pass rush. Don't make cornerbacks stay on an island and have to cover for 7 seconds. It just doesn't make sense. Nobody can do that for any length of time. So I love the way they're doing it. And Ulbrich got me excited, man.
No doubt. And, just staying with the theme of Flight 2021, some guys talk about leadership and talk about culture and all that, but then you see Robert Saleh talk about it and actually act on it. And it just, his leadership presence just oozes out of the screen as you're watching that documentary. And credit to the Jets for showing us, what the Zoom interview was like between Douglas and Saleh and Christopher Johnson when they were going through the hiring process way back in January. That was really cool to see. You talk about leadership, GreenBean. I mean, I don't think Robert Saleh could do anything wrong right now until, of course, we actually get the games being played. But he's still in that honeymoon period, and Flight 2021 only made the Jet fan revere Robert Saleh even more.
Yeah, well, and you're so right. I mean, we go 0-3, and it's going to change a touch, just a tad. But right now, the thing is that we're seeing the action that supports the bill of goods that we were sold. And one of the things that I like that he said the most was he really conveys to players that he is available to discuss their personal stuff, issues going on. He wants to help them limit and take care of the outside noise so they can actually focus on their job and what they're there to do. And he, as a head coach, makes himself available. What a contrast from the last head coach. We had a guy who literally sat on the other end of the bench during games alone while his quarterback was crying, alone on the other end of the bench. So it's just such a shift. And that type of stuff, it might take a minute for players to really believe that what he's saying is true. But I think so far they can tell he's a genuine man. And he's not blustery. He's just as confident as a Rex Ryan was, but without the bluster and all that potential negative that could come with it. And I loved Rex. I don't want to sound like I didn't, but Robert Saleh seems like he's got the confidence of a Rex Ryan with the analytical nature of like a Walsh or somebody like that, somebody that they respect their football acumen as well.
Let's talk about the quarterback now, GreenBean, because if you watch Flight 2021, I think it's beyond clear that the Jets organization, from the coaching staff to the scouting people to obviously Joe Douglas, it became more and more clear to them as the process went on what they were going to do with, the second pick. And do you keep Sam and do you draft the quarterback at 2? it seems like it wasn't like, oh, we don't want to pay Sam, so we're just going to move on from him. It's like, no, we love Zack Wilson. Zack Wilson's our guy. Like, we're moving on from Sam because we think Zack Wilson's a special talent. Did you get that vibe as well when you listened in on the conversation the scouts were having and the discussion about what Wilson brings to the table? They love the arm talent. That's obvious. But it was all the intangible stuff about Wilson that separated him from basically every other quarterback in this class besides probably Trevor Lawrence.
Right. And we'll never know, most likely, how they really viewed Trevor Lawrence. Like, let's say we lost out. Would we have taken Trevor Lawrence? We're never going to know that, and that's fine. But I agree with you. I think that they were in love with Zack Wilson. And one of the things that Robert Saleh actually said about when they were evaluating Wilson was their offense translates to the Jets' offense very, very well. So they could actually see him running plays in the offense that they were going to ask him to run. They said it was similar to evaluating him in our offense already. So that was a weird little bonus that they got with Zack Wilson. And Mike LaFleur, he was very complimentary to Sam Darnold. He said, I liked Sam a whole bunch, but I think you're nailing it. They loved Zack Wilson. And the idea of starting fresh with their guy and the guy happening to be him, I think made it too attractive to ignore, and that's why they went that way.
From what you've heard from Zack Wilson, because a big conversation coming in is how's a kid that is in Provo, Utah, at BYU going to handle playing in the big bad, New York media market? From what you've heard from Zack Wilson so far, thoughts on him as a person, his personality, anything that you've taken away from getting the chance to learn more about the quarterback of the Jets?
Yeah, let me say this first. I apologize if you hear noise all of a sudden. I live outside, as you know, and it just started pouring. So I'm going to mute myself while you're talking. I'll do my best. So I do apologize. But let me say this. Like, I was very objective going into the draft. I liked Zack Wilson, but I didn't love Zack Wilson like a lot of other people did. I liked Justin Fields. I even liked Trey Lance. And if we were considering a trade back with a Mac Jones kind of a thing, I didn't hate that, depending on what the return was and all that. But the fact that Zack Wilson is the guy, obviously I'm going to root for him. But since he's been here, I have to tell you, I love the way he's handled the media. I love the little sound bites we get from him. I love that he's hanging out with his offensive linemen. I love that he's out to dinner with his receivers. I love every single thing that he's put out. And here's the difference. I liked Sam too, but I always felt like Sam was a nice guy. I'm not getting that from Zack Wilson. I think he's a good guy, but I feel like he has more of an edge to him, that little bit more of that competitive fire. Like Sam, the California kind of laid back and everything. And that's not to say anything negative about Sam, but I never felt what I'm feeling from Zack Wilson from Sam Darnold. And I think that might give him that little edge with the type of area and market that we are. And I've loved everything about him. I'm very happy it's him now that I see him here. I think it's a slam dunk, quite frankly.
GreenBean, did I make a mistake purchasing this already, or am I in good shape with my Zack Wilson number 2 jersey here?
Well, hey, look, you got at least 3 or 4 years with it, right? It's funny. I actually will not. I refuse. I refuse to buy a jersey. I give it to you, man. I really did. The one time I broke protocol and bought a jersey was when we went with the new uniforms. And that night they had a deal, and I bought my son a Sam Darnold jersey. My exact words were, "Sam's going to at least be here for 5 to 10 years." 3 years later, that jersey's toast. So I get nervous. I wear Mo Lewis. I wear Mark Gastineau. I wear Freeman McNeil. Those are my guys. I feel safe. But I think, hey, man, good for you. I applaud that function.
I appreciate it. I've been helping out my fellow Jet fans. So, I am against paying like $150, whatever it is, for like the minimum Jets jersey. So if any of my fellow Jet fans watching this new to the channel want a link to get a jersey for Wilson or Elijah Moore or Mekhi Becton from, I'll call it parts unknown. I can't exactly say where it's coming from. Subscribe to me right here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at @JGasman and shoot me a DM. And I'm happy to hook you up with the link to get a Jets jersey that's a little cheaper. So if you're like me and you like to get Adams and Le'Veon Bell and Sam Darnold and, now they're all off the team, at least you didn't spend a fortune putting those jerseys together. Like right now, GreenBean, I have Zack Wilson and I have a Joe Namath jersey. And then I think somewhere in my house on Long Island, back where I'm from, I might have a Muhammad Wilkerson jersey lying around. So it's been rough for the Jet fan to try and get some core pieces. I have a Revis jersey too, so I got to count that. But for the most part, we haven't had a whole lot we could really, sink our teeth into of late.
No, Revis is still safe. The fact that he came back, and even though he got fat and lazy the last year he was here, it's still Revis is going to go to the Hall as predominantly a Jet. So he's still safe to wear. But yeah, man, I had my friends like to buy me jerseys and supporters and all that. And I've been sent Muhammad Wilkerson jerseys and Mark Sanchez jerseys. I'm telling you, some I didn't even wear before they were gone. And it's funny, I had a contest on my show, and one of the guys who won, we did like a live stream mock draft thing, and he had all this stuff behind him, Jamal Adams and Sam Darnold. He said that he ordered this Jamal Adams thing. It was so expensive. It came to his house the day after they traded Jamal Adams. He said, I'm hanging it up. I don't care. I paid so much money for it. I'm hanging it up. That's one of those things, man. It's like I never get on anybody, but for me, it's just like, hey, I'm just too damaged to go ahead and buy a jersey. I'm scared. I feel like I'm a jinx. You know what I mean?
I totally get it. What do you think about just the selection of Elijah Moore and the number 8 that he's rocking? I mean, to actually have a skill position player that looks like he's going to be unbelievable, has a ton of upside, and he's wearing the number 8. I think that's cool, right? The Jets might have some swagger with Moore and some swagger with the jersey number that he's going to be wearing on NFL Sundays.
Yeah, maybe he'll Browning Nagel the number 8, so that would be nice. But look, I'm an old man, right? Like I'm leaning towards being a phobie, so it's like I struggle with the new changes and all that. So I do. I'm like a grumpy. I'm like, let's just keep it the way it goes, But I do think that having a guy like Elijah Moore is fantastic. I'm a big fan of what Joe Douglas did, and I've been saying it for a long time. I love big, strong wide receivers that can jump and block. I like hands catchers, I like high pointers, and I like guys like Antoine Bolden and Steve Smith that'll clean your clock for the running back. I love that. Joe Douglas, every single wide receiver he's brought in here prior to Elijah Moore has been 6'2" and above. Every single receiver that he brought in is known for blocking. So he's set that up to have the underneath for a guy like an Elijah Moore or over the top. It's perfect. The way that I like to see an offense built, Joe Douglas is doing it perfectly. And I think Elijah Moore is going to be the best skill position guy we've had in here since Santana Moss. And I don't even think Santana Moss ever reached his potential with us, but I still think he was a very, very, very talented young man. And I think Elijah Moore is going to supersede that for us. I couldn't be more excited to have that type of Tyreek Hill-esque element to what we're doing, the speed and the cuts. And, man, I'm excited for him.
Obviously, Corey Davis was the big, offensive free agent signing, bringing him in to, be that, quote, number 1 outside guy. But you look at, Denzel Mintz in this offense in year 2. Now that he doesn't have Adam Gase drawing up plays for him, if Mintz can stay healthy, because that was really a big issue his rookie year with the hamstring injuries. If Mintz is healthy, GreenBean, I feel like Denzel Mintz takes a massive step forward this year. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to be talking about Denzel Mintz as, one of those guys that, goes from not necessarily an afterthought as a rookie, but someone on the back burner to someone that's going to be a focal part of this offense going forward. Do you agree with the potential for Mims in year 2?
Yes, I do, and I don't read into any of this stuff that Keelan Cole is ahead of him on the depth chart. The way I see that stuff is this. I've said this a long time. I'm no sage, man. I'm just a pretty logical fella, And it's like when you sign a guy or have a draft pick, and you just let them know that the job is theirs without any competition or any work, it most of the time ends up prohibiting their growth. I like competition. I like guys to prove that they earn the spot. And that's for me, that's what I see with this. They're telling Denzel Mintz, from my perspective, hey, look, bro, we believe in your talent. You're obviously a very, very talented. You have a lot of potential. But you're going to earn it, and you're going to play with the twos. And how does that feel, while Keelan Cole has your job? Now, even if it takes him another year or whatever, Denzel Mintz was one of my favorite wide receivers in last year's draft. The fact that we got him, I thought, was the most wonderful thing in the world. It was our Michael Thomas, in my opinion. That's how I saw it. So I think, exactly like you said, he is on the precipice of really becoming an incredible wide receiver. I think it might take him some time because they've decided to make him work for it, which I think is a positive. Chris Herndon could have could have benefited from such a thing, in my opinion.
Another key player on this team that has to have a big impact for the Jets to overachieve is CJ Mosley. I mean, a lot of us forget, but for the first 3 quarters of 2019 against the Bills, CJ Mosley was the best defender the Jet fan has seen since 2009, 2010 Darrelle Revis. Mosley, but based on all the reports, GreenBean, looks good. He hasn't really played though, of course, in 2 years. Do you expect CJ Mosley to be a big contributor, a big time player once again in this defense with Saleh?
I do. I think that one of the things when CJ Mosley decided to opt out, there was that little tweet. I'm not sure if you saw it, where he said, "I have to find the fire again." Did you see that thing?
Yes.
So that kind of made its way around, and it was like, this guy's done. He's done. Like, that's what I thought. I think hiring Robert Saleh and subsequently Jeff Ulbrich was the perfect hire to be able to take a guy like CJ Mosley, who's just like you said. I mean, that game was some of the best defense we've ever seen for 3 quarters. For CJ Mosley to do exactly that and find that fire again, I think Saleh is the perfect coach for that. And I think, like everybody's saying, he came in, he's clean and cut. He looks like he lost a few pounds, and I'm excited for him. It seems like he's excited, and I think if he's excited, we're going to see pretty close to what CJ Mosley has been for the other years of his career that he played. And I couldn't be more excited. I'm also excited for Jarrad Davis, man. I'm letting everybody sleep on him. I loved Jarrad Davis coming into the league, and I think Matt Patricia basically ruined him. And I'm excited for him next to CJ Mosley. Oh my God, they're gonna thump the world. And to answer your question, yes, I'm looking for a big year from CJ Mosley.
You mentioned Davis. I've always said that, Matt Patricia is like the Adam Gase of defensive coaches. So if you put it in perspective like that, I'm expecting Davis to come in now, being coached by Ulbrich and obviously Saleh and fit right in with this defense. How about some quick hitters for you, GreenBean? Marcus May. We know he showed up to mandatory minicamp, but he wants a contract. There's no secret about that. I think it's the right message to pay Marcus May, especially if Jamal Adams doesn't end up getting his money right away from the Seahawks. It would be a nice win for the Jets if they end up paying the other safety that's been on the team the whole time in Marcus May. Plus, sends the right message to obviously pay your own, and it sends the right message throughout the organization inside that locker room in particular. Give me your thoughts on Marcus May. Do you think ultimately by July 15th, the Jets and May work out a long-term deal?
Well, let me say this. I hope they do. I do happen to like Marcus May. I don't think he's quite as good as a lot of Jets fans make him out to be, but I think he's solid, and I'd love him to stay. I don't know, man. It seems like after the draft, Joe Douglas said Marcus May was his priority. We're 50 days from the draft, and it's not done. So that seems like they're really far apart. So I think I would say 50-50, but I am hoping that it gets done. But Joe Douglas hasn't extended anybody for any length of time yet. And don't forget, they're not his guys. We're still talking about McCagnon's guys. But I don't think he feels the same urgency to kind of keep his guys because they're not really his, if that makes any sense. But I think we got a good shot, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, after Robbie Anderson obviously walked, I think the key would be you send the right message by signing May long term. And look, he's still a very good player and a big part of that secondary for the season. Now, a lot of talk about the Jets signing Morgan Moses to play offensive line. We know the Jets were talking long-term deal with him, but then it stopped. I've been told by people in the know, which, well, they're negotiating. Moses' people are trying to get more money from the Jets or any other team to match the Jets' reported offer. And if that doesn't happen, well, eventually he'll sign with the Jets. But it seems like they're going back and forth right now trying to get a deal done. Ultimately, I've said on my show on the radio and here on YouTube that I think he's going to be a Jet. Where are you at with Moses? And do you think he would be a worthwhile investment for Joe Douglas for this offensive line?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's funny, we're hearing the reports, but up to this point, the reports about what the Jets have been doing have been inaccurate in large part. They said that we were dealing with this guy and we weren't. They said that we weren't dealing with that guy and then we signed him and all that sort of stuff. So these reports I take with a grain of salt. Now, I know some people too, and they give me little tidbits and stuff. The word for me that I received was it's looking good. That's what I heard. So now that would be great for me. The way I see Morgan Moses, I happen to like him a great deal. He's one of the offensive linemen that I really like in this league. I don't know why Washington got rid of him. That's a whole other thing. But I think he would be an upgrade. And the way I see it is bring him in and let the coaches figure out where guys are going to play. He's an upgrade from George Fant, and I happen to like George Fant. But he's clearly an upgrade. The guy never misses time. and I think you bring him in. But I'm hoping that it happens, man. Just build that line. I really am high on guys like Cam Clark, and I want to see the competition. But if you could just slam down that right tackle position and then let George Fant or whoever play for the guard spot, let the coaches deal with that. You bring in talent when you have the opportunity to.
Totally agree. I mean, especially when, the only thing that maybe stops Mekhi Becton from being an all-pro every year is injury. So if you bring in, a guy like Moses who's played both tackle spots, and obviously you still have George Fant, you feel pretty good about the depth on that offensive line. Now, another name that is out there that just got released by Pittsburgh yesterday is the guard, former Pro Bowler, David Castro. Now, he's not coming off a great season. That's part of the reason why the Steelers basically moved on from him. He was probably making a lot of money, and he was unwilling to redo his deal. Is he someone you would take a flyer on? Because the Jets can still get whoever they want. They still have the most cap space left in the NFL.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice to see? And that's the thing, too, with the other teams that we're negotiating against, they don't have the same cap, so they're limited in what they can offer these guys. Now, if I had my druthers, if it was one guy or the other, I'd be willing to pay the premium on Moses rather than DeCastro, and I like DeCastro's earlier times. Like I said, last year wasn't so good. He's the kind of guy that I would give a one-year prove-it deal kind of a thing and just add him to the rotation and the competition and the mix. But I wouldn't want to see him brought in with the expectation that he's starting. But I would feel differently with Moses. I think Moses, you could probably say, like, all right, man, you're going to compete, but you're probably going to start kind of thing. So I'd rather have Moses to this group, but I would definitely kick those tires for sure.
Backup quarterback. A lot of Jet fans want a veteran brought in. I understand why. We have been tortured with the backups we've seen over the last, 10-something years. Obviously, Zack Wilson goes down. Well, forget it, because it's all about his development going into 2021. But, I understand what Saleh and Douglas have said. The guys they have already in place, they wanted to get all the reps to and OTAs and minicamp. I still think, though, GreenBean, when it's all said and done, they will add some sort of veteran quarterback to that QB room. Is there a preference in a guy you wanted? I wanted Nick Mullins because he at least knew the offense that the Jets are going to be running under Mike LaFleur. That obviously can't happen. Mullins is no longer an option. Nick Foles still is if he eventually gets released or they work out a trade for a 7th round pick. Is there a guy that you want to see the Jets bring in to be the backup quarterback?
Well, I agree with you. I kind of like the idea of Mullins, but the guy I wanted was Boyer. That's who I wanted, and he's back with the Patriots, and that's fine. But he still might get cut because Stidham's there, Mac Jones is there, Cam Newton's there, so they have a little bit of a crowded room there. But here, did you like Saleh's comments about the backup quarterback, the vet backup quarterback? If we bring in a guy who doesn't know our system, what's he going to teach? Everybody expects him to come in here and help out the young guy, but he's going to be learning too. What's he going to teach him how to brush his teeth or something like that? So I actually like that, and I while I do agree with you, I think we're going to end up bringing somebody in. I'm going to tell you right now, I would not have an issue if they just said, you know what, everybody out there is a big fat turd. We're just going to go with our young guys. We have we have Greg Knapp in the house. We have Calabrese in the house. We have legitimate coaching staff in the house. John Benton's here. We can coach up our guys. We're going to develop our guys, and that's what we're going to war with our young, strong-arm quarterback room. I'd be like, all right, let's do it.
The thing is, Douglas used a 4th round pick a year ago on James Morgan. So if he doesn't end up adding anyone, that's a sign that the Jets actually think Morgan's turning out pretty good and he's developing as a backup. And I think the reason why the Jet fan is so eager to add someone to that room, there was no preseason last year. So we have no idea, what James Morgan could do or what Mike White could do because we've never seen them do anything in, even in games that don't count in the exhibition season.
Oh, and we're scared, man. We're a damaged fan base. If anybody's beaten down, it's us. We're scared. We want as much assurance as we can. And I get it. But again, I think we also haven't had legitimate coaching. Even Todd Bowles' staff left a lot to be desired. And Rex's staff left a lot to be desired. So we finally have coaches that are accomplished. Greg Knapp, look into him, man, for anybody who's listening. If you don't know who Greg Knapp is, take a look. Look into John Benton. These guys have been around. They've been incredibly successful. So I'm okay, but I get it. I think we're going to probably end up adding somebody once the cuts start coming down. We'll get some vet guy who has 8 years of experience, kind of a thing. A Matt Moore type, even though he's not around. something like that, and that'll be fine. But again, if they decided, you know what, everybody out there is garbage, we're just going to go with our young guys, I'd rah that. I would.
GreenBean, finally, you've been a diehard Jet fan for such a long time. You have the scars all over your body and whatnot, but you've also seen some great moments in the history of the franchise. So I'm curious, what to you is your favorite moment since you became a Jet fan?
It's not even a question. The Midnight Miracle, when we were there, I was watching that game in Giant Stadium. I had two Miami fan buddies with me and then my two Jets fan buddies with me. And we were getting trounced on Monday Night Football. We watched the whole stadium empty out. Now, I happened to stay. And when we started this comeback, I literally watched the stadium refill up to like 80%. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Like everybody was in the parking lot, ran back in, and kind of stormed the gates. And then the way that we won that at 1:30 in the morning or whatever it was, I buzzed from that on for a year. I couldn't, and even when I met Vinny Testaverde, I got to talk to him about that. He signed my helmet, Midnight Miracle, blah, blah, blah. But it was just one of those things. It was the most impactful moment. There are other great moments, but that one was so unique and so special that it's going to be tough to beat for me. It was good.
Finally, GreenBean, tell the people watching this live or people watching it after the fact where they could find you, where they could listen to all your Jets-related content.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you can find me at GreenBean Jets Fan on YouTube. You can also go to Jet Nation on YouTube. I do a weekly series there, On the Road with GreenBean. And just as a little extra nugget, if you want to follow what I'm doing out here, you can go to my coaster page. I'm taking my kids on every roller coaster in the country. I bought my RV in Houston, by the way, when I was there. But you can find all that stuff on Full-Time Coaster Tour on YouTube as well.
He's GreenBean. My name is Jake Asman. If you're new to the channel, as we talk plenty of Jets and much more on my YouTube page, please subscribe below. If you're new and you want the link to the parts unknown location for this beautiful number 2 Zack Wilson jersey, well, I need you to DM me on Twitter, follow me there, and I'll certainly help all my fellow Jet fans out. GreenBean, this was a ton of fun, man. Great to get you on. I mean, let me tell you, you were one of the most requested people that people were saying, you got to have GreenBean on. You got to have GreenBean on. So I'm glad we made this happen. Thanks for sharing your insight, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Jake.
He's GreenBean. I'm Jake. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great Friday. And if you're watching this before Game 7 of the Islanders and Lightning, I end by saying this. Let's go